So, hello everyone, this is Varish here and welcome to Nutrition in Plants Day 5. So, in today's video, we are going to learn about a bunch of topics. So, the first topic comes to be the 16 important minerals required for plant growth. So, we saw that plants prepare food by the process of photosynthesis and they require some materials like carbon dioxide, water, chlorophyll and sunlight. And they produce oxygen that is just a waste product for them and food. That is really important. And then for the photosynthesis to take place and basically for the plant to be healthy, there are 16 important minerals that are required. So the soil should be rich in all these minerals in correct quantities if the plant has to be healthy. So let's see. First comes the carbon. Now carbon is an important mineral. It has to be really abundant. Next comes the hydrogen. The hydrogen is also an important mineral. Oxygen, it is also an important mineral. So these three, carbon, hydrogen and oxygen, they are the important minerals that are required and need to be found in large amounts. Next comes the nitrogen, potassium and phosphorus. They are primary minerals or next important to carbon, hydrogen, oxygen. Next important to carbon, hydrogen and oxygen. So they are called primary minerals, nitrogen, potassium and phosphorus. You might have heard about NPK minerals or NPK fertilizers. They are these guys, nitrogen, potassium, phosphorus. Next comes the micronutrients. These nutrients are required in small amounts. The calcium, magnesium, sulfur, boron, copper, iron, manganese, zinc, molybdenum and chlorine are micronutrients. So to basically summarize, carbon, hydrogen, oxygen are really important or are at the top. So they are really important and they come at the top. Now next comes the primary minerals that are at the second. They are nitrogen, potassium and phosphorus. And next the micronutrients that are required in a really small amount. They are calcium, magnesium, sulfur, boron, copper, iron, manganese, zinc, molybdenum and chlorine. Now we have seen the important minerals that are required for a plant. Now let's see how do the nutrients get replenished in the soil. The nutrients get replenished by manure and fertilizers and by crop rotation. Now let's see. Manure and fertilizers. Now as we see the manure is added by the farmers. Now manure refers to the organic material that is present, that is biodegradable or that dissolves with the soil and that releases the minerals. So if a plant is grown and then that plant uses up all the minerals in the soil. So to replenish the minerals in the soil, manure is used and even fertilizers. Now there are various fertilizers that are added to the soil to make it rich with nutrients. Now you might have heard about this NPK fertilizers. N refers to nitrogen, P refers to phosphorus, K refers to potassium. So these fertilizers are generally added by farmers. So as we see, these three are the primary nutrients. From our previous slide we know about it. So fertilizers and manure, they are added for making the soil rich in nutrients. Next comes the crop rotation. Now crop rotation is something unknown. So let me just tell it to you. Now you have a nitrogenous plant or a leguminous plant, we basically call it. That is the bean family. So they are called leguminous plants because they give us beans that are rich in protein. So these are called leguminous plants. So once they are grown, the soil will be full of nitrogen. Why? We'll get the answer in this video where we'll talk about nitrogen fixation. So just for now, remember that or imagine that this after a leguminous plant or a plant or the bean family plant or the plant which gives us proteins is grown, the soil would be full of nitrogen. So the next plant, for when we grow the next plant, the nitrogen fertilizer does not need to be added because the soil is already full of nitrogen. So we don't need to add the nitrogen fertilizer because the soil is now rich with nitrogen. It's full of nitrogen. So we do not have the requirement to add the nitrogen. So This way, even the nutrients are replenished. So we saw that in photosynthesis, the plant prepares carbohydrates. Now, how do the plants prepare proteins, fats, vitamins, and minerals? Now, these carbohydrates which are there, they are modified or complexified, as you can say. They are complexified to form fats, vitamins, and minerals. Now, if you see the sunflower over here, it gives an extract of sunflower oil. Now, this oil is fat and it is a complexified form of carbohydrate. So, the nuts over here, they give us fat and carbohydrate. They are complexified form of carbohydrate. So, these other nutrients are created by complexifying the carbohydrates. So, as you see, the food is created in carbohydrates and complexified as other nutrients. How do plants make protein? They contain nitrogen. So, we see that carbohydrates can be modified or complexified into proteins and fats, vitamins and minerals and all that. But protein is made up of nitrogen and carbohydrates are made up of carbon, hydrogen and oxygen. So, how do plants create protein? Let's see. It's through a process called nitrogen cycle. Nitrogen cycle is also called nitrogen fixation. So as we know that proteins require nitrogen, so they need to absorb nitrogen. And just like in photosynthesis, plants require carbon dioxide and they absorb carbon dioxide. Just for proteins, they require nitrogen, so they need to absorb nitrogen. And we see that nitrogen is present in abundance. It's 78% of the air is made up of nitrogen. So a lot of nitrogen is present in the air. But the problem here is it cannot be used by the plant. The direct atmospheric nitrogen, as we call it, cannot be used by the plant. So it needs to be converted into a soluble form or a form that plants can use. So the nitrogen of the atmosphere, or the N2, is taken and converted into NH3 or ammonia by the rhizobium bacteria. Now, this bacteria is a helpful bacteria, but it does not do this for free. It takes a cost. The plant in turn provides food and shelter to the rhizobium bacteria, whereas the rhizobium bacteria provides ammonia. So this type of relationship is called a symbiotic relationship, and these rhizobium bacteria, they live in the root nodules of the plant. So the nitrogen is taken and it's converted into ammonia. Next comes the nitrifying bacteria. This nitrifying bacteria convert ammonia to nitrates and nitrites, and now these nitrates and nitrites can be used by the plant. So done. Enough proteins are made. But there is another problem. If all the nitrogen is used up, why is there still 78% of nitrogen in the atmosphere? It has to be recycled. But before that, let me tell you even something. This nitrates or NH3, the atmospheric nitrogen, can be directly converted to these nitrates by lightning. So sometimes, in some cases, lightning can convert this, but in most cases, these bacteria are converting. Next, now how does the nitrogen get recycled? Now plants use this to make food and die, and then if they die, the nitrogen matter is released into the soil, or else the animal eat it and then they excrete. The excrete is what we call as manure, and it has rich in nitrogen. So these things are released and they are made up of nitrogen, so they are released to the soil. And if the denitrifying bacteria which are there, they convert these nitrates and nitrites to the atmospheric nitrogen, and thus the balance is maintained. So this is called the nitrogen fixation or the nitrogen cycle. To summarize this nitrogen cycle, the N2 or the atmospheric nitrogen is taken and by rhizobium bacteria it's converted into ammonia, and then the nitrifying bacteria converted into nitrates and nitrites, and then this one, when these animals and trees they die or they excrete, somehow this nitrogen is released into the soil, and these nitrates are released into the soil. Now they are converted to atmospheric nitrogen by denitrifying bacteria. So, some facts about plants. Light is important for plants that they grow in various patterns. So light is really important for plants. They grow in various patterns, like one you see over here. It is growing in various patterns. It's bending towards light. 90% of the food comes from 30 plants. So overall, for 90% of food comes from just 30 plants. Earth has 80,000 species of edible plants. So there are 80,000 species of edible plants, and 90% of food comes from just 30 plants. 70,000 parts are utilized for medicine. So 70,000 plants are utilized for medicine. So there are, you need to imagine there are how many species of plants that are there. So these are some facts, and in our next video we'll deal with another special, the heterotrophic nutrition in plants. Now this does sound weird because this sounds weird because plants are autotrophic. They are meant to do photosynthesis and provide food to the world. But there are some special plants that do not make food or make food, but they are heterotrophic too. So in our next video, we will deal with these type of plants. And I have a homework for you. I told you that light is important for plants and that they grow in various patterns. See, this one is bending towards the light. So the homework is you need to find out the name of the process of this bending of plants towards the light, in the direction of light. So you need to find out the name of that process, but I'll tell you the answer in the next video. So that's the homework for you guys. So thank you for watching this video. I'll continue the chapter in the next video. Until then, bye bye.